What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully everyone is having a good start to their day, depending upon where you are at. It is just about 5 a.m. here on the West Coast, depending upon where on the West Coast you're at. It could be about 10 to 5 a.m. or 10 to 4 a.m. And if you're further west, then yeah, you're probably still asleep. I can't imagine that you're even up. So again, hopefully everyone is having a good day or a good start to your day. Yeah, couldn't. It's one of those situations where you just can't sleep. You see what's going on out there in the horror space, and then just decide might as well just jump online and see who's awake. Have some discussions. Cover some of this news because some of it I'm just not understanding it, just not getting it, and maybe there's a bigger maybe there's a bigger plan in place that I'm just not understanding, and hopefully they know what they're doing, and I know I'm not giving much context into those statements, but believe me, we'll get there. We're gonna cover off on some casting information for Scream, Dexter, covering off on on the latest digital release for a film I'm sure many of us probably saw a few weeks ago, and like I predicted, it only took a few weeks. And the article goes on to state that it's a common thing. I'm not seeing it being a broad common thing, but we'll cover that. And we have a brief update, another update on Alien Earth and Popeye the Slayer Man. So I'm not gonna share the content just because I don't want to take the chance of any copyright issues from the creators, because it's a film that I don't even know if it's even come out yet in theaters, but the first 5 minutes was released. And again, I tried doing that once before, and within minutes I was asked to. I didn't get a copyright strike or anything like that, but the video got highly pulled back, so to speak. Like the reach on it wasn't going to be that much, so it wasn't even worth having the video even up anymore at that point on another movie. So I'm not going to share the 5 minutes, but I will provide the link for it in the description of today's video. So if you want to go watch the 5 minutes, you can do so. So we are going to touch on my thoughts on that as well. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty chill stream. Not going to be that long this morning because, again, I know many of you are either getting up and starting your morning, or you're kind of in the middle of your day. So going to keep it pretty quick for today's video. We will be dropping like we normally do. I do have one movie review to drop later today. I will say, and I will preface it in the details of that introduction for that particular video, today's movie review. The movie is going to be a bit hard to watch if you decide to watch it. The movie overall, I didn't think was that good. So I'll just give you a little bit of a teaser. So the film is called Everyone Is Going to Die, and it is one of those, I'd say, independent type films, right? You can tell it's very much independent. I would say, falls in the realm of home invasion / revenge subgenres of horror. And the subject matter you don't think is going to be part of the film, but as the film starts to pick up, you realize the subject matter is a very, very sensitive one, and can be very hard, very hard for many people to watch. And I would even say for a film like this, unless you're deep into horror, I would probably say avoid it. I would say for newcomers to horror, excuse me, it might be a little tough to watch this again because of the subject matter that they touch on, and they don't get overly graphic, but they do lead you right up to the ledge of the subject matter. And I think at that point some people could easily just be turned off by it. I didn't know the subject matter of this film going into it. I only saw the official trailer, and the trailer obviously doesn't get very detailed into what it's about. So I rented it last night, watched it, and I finished it through. But again, it's not a film I'll ever come back to, and I'm not because of the subject matter. Again, the subject matter is very, very sensitive. I just didn't think overall it was that good of a film when you think if it falls within the home invasion spectrum. Um, it definitely falls on the lower end of what we've seen from home invasion films or revenge films. So we'll be dropping that movie review hopefully later today for the film Everyone Is Going to Die. It just came out this year, but again, what didn't get a theatrical release, it was again more of the straight to digital VOD, and I can double check real quick. I'm pretty sure if it did get one, it was a very minor theatrical release. Yeah, it didn't get one at all. So unless you know of this film as far as on the more the independent side, you probably haven't heard of this film. So just a heads up, we'll be dropping that today. We did drop a couple movie reviews yesterday, if you did not know. So you can go ahead and check that out. We also did some trailer reviews. There were quite a few trailers yesterday. And I see quite a few trailers meaning unexpected trailers. So we had the second trailer for Happy Face, which didn't expect we were going to be getting a second one because that series on Paramount Plus begins on March 20th. And then we also got The Bondsman, and that series on Amazon Prime will start on April 3rd. So did not expect to get a trailer for either one of those yesterday. And we also did a trailer the day before, two other trailer reviews. We got the second trailer for The Woman in the Yard, which I thought was a far better trailer than the first one. As the article we pulled up before we reviewed that trailer, they specifically say the first trailer was leaned more towards like a little less mystery, and this one gave us where the woman in the yard, the entity, whoever this person is, we hear her talk, that she's much more involved in the trailer. We actually have an idea of how she moves about within the shadows, things of that nature. And we also did a trailer for The Island Between Tides. Didn't know that was coming, and it dropped yesterday, actually the day before as well. So go check out those trailers. And then the latest movie reviews we did was for Significant Other, which was a Paramount Plus original from 2022, and No One Will Save You from 2023, which is a Hulu original. So those are some of the latest ones we've done. But yeah, we'll keep trying. I usually try to watch 2 horror films a night, and then try to bring the reviews the next day. But sometimes they run a little bit longer than others, and then I need a break between horror films. So last night I only got through one, and then with the various TV series going to be starting up soon, we might just shift to one horror movie review a day, and then we'll have the various TV series that we'll be doing. So go check out those videos, and also we have specific playlists set up for those as well, if you want to just look at the trailer reviews or movie reviews that we have. All right, so let's jump into some of the headlines we've seen over the last couple of days. So we've been covering off on Alien Earth, I think probably since we first started getting news about it. And if I haven't been covering off on here, I do co-host another show over on the ACS Universe channel with Anthony. We do a show on Mondays and Fridays, and we typically cover other content outside of horror, whether that's just general movies, entertainment, superhero stuff, superhero movies, TV shows like that. So if those types of things interest you, go check out that channel, subscribe to that channel. Again, we do Mondays and Friday shows in the morning. It's usually around 5 a.m. On the East Coast, and then it is 7 a.m. on Eastern Standard Time. But we've been talking about Alien Earth, and we've been talking about it on this channel as well. And we have now another update. The last update we covered off on this one was we were getting an immersive experience from Alien Earth for a limited time. And now we have what they're calling fresh footage from Alien Earth. It gives us a clear look at a Xenomorph. So we have this first image here, and we're going to check out it's only 7 seconds long. So, and I'm going to give my thoughts on what's going on. Like, what are we doing here with this whole thing? So ahead of the show's special activation at SXSW this week, FX has released a new TV spot for this summer's Alien Earth, the legendary franchise's very first television series. Alien Earth is headed to FX on Hulu this summer, which we know all this. We know this as well. Sydney Chandler stars in FX's Alien Earth set before Alien in the year 2120. Again, nothing we didn't already know. So I really just want to jump to this down here. And I think, if I remember correctly, this synopsis, when I read through it originally, I don't recall us reading some of these details or covering off on this. So this states here the upcoming series, 5 corporations, Prodigy, Weyland Yutani, Lynch Dynamic, and Threshold wield the power of nations and proprietary advancements in technology, provide the promise of a new tomorrow. When a mysterious space vessel crash lands on Earth, a young woman and a ragtag group of tactical soldiers make a fateful discovery that puts them face to face with the planet's greatest threat. And so we're going to come back to that a little bit. So we have the casting here, which we've gone over a multitude of times, so I'm not going to spend any time going over casting. We know all this, but it's this here. It's this 7-second clip. So I'm just gonna. So before we do that, we have the same poster that we've always had right here, which I think is probably the best poster that they've done for this series, and it's the official one. We're seeing a lot of AI generated posters that are absolutely fire, but they're just. If they were official ones, I think that'd be even better. I think some studios do themselves a disservice when they don't reach out to artists, and I don't mean artists that are using AI. I mean artists that actually are putting pen to paper and creating some of the stuff. I think they do themselves a disservice when it comes to the posters, cover art, steelbook covers, things of that nature, and just pumping out what seems that many times to just be generic stuff when some of that artwork looks pretty good. So this is the clip that they've given us. It's 7 seconds. So
when the monsters come, all you can do is scream.
So yeah, as you can see, the picture up top, so we'll scroll back to the top, it's a much bigger image. So this is that first image that we're getting of the Xenomorph in that 7-second bit. So where I'm going, so I wanted to show that, but also where I'm at still with this whole Alien Earth thing is they're putting so much marketing and such a big push behind this series. I mean, at some point, give me some dates, give me some run times, give me some more information besides these high-level synopsises that really don't tell me much. And I feel that we're just getting just drips and drabs like this, a 7-second TV spot. And I think previously it was probably 10 seconds where we're seeing this ship that's burning up and getting ready to enter into Earth's atmosphere, things of that nature. I mean, at some point, we're already into March, and if this is coming in the summertime, technically depending upon where you're at, where I'm at, summer is going to literally start in less than 2 months. So we're less than 2 months away. We haven't received a actual full-on trailer, a full 2.5, 3-minute trailer that gives us a better insight into how the story is going to play out, because for me, it's going to be crucial. I enjoy the Alien franchise for the most part. However, there have definitely been some missteps within the Alien franchise. Now, from what we've seen, I don't think this is going to be a misstep. I think this is going to hit as far as the TV series, but you're not giving me much to get too excited about. I need more than just TV spots. I need more than just 7 seconds here, 10 seconds there, this synopsis, and then you give me half of another one. Give me a full scope picture of what you're doing. So we can, again, get hooked into this and start really getting behind it. I'm gonna watch it either way. It's just, I guess, as someone who's been anticipating the show, would like to finally see a full trailer for it. Again, we're only 2 months out, and typically for a movie, if we're 2 months out from getting a movie, we've already seen a teaser trailer or a teaser, a full trailer, a probably 30 to 45 second TV spot at minimum. And with this, we've really just seen, again, just drips and drabs of it. So, again, it's just 7 seconds. We get the first image of it. But back to the top, I'm not going to stand on my soapbox too long today on this one. I really don't even want to have to stand on my soapbox. But again, the fact that it is set before Alien in the year 2120, I've mentioned this before. When it comes to this, we know it's set 2 years before the original Alien film. I'm still wondering, and my co-host and I, Anthony on the ACS Universe, we were talking about this Monday. They got to find a way to explain the disconnect between what this image here is showing us and this new TV spot that they just gave us a couple days ago. What we're seeing in this TV spot versus what we know to have happened in the first two Alien films. Well, actually, really, even beyond that. I think it's really beyond that. The story that they really set forth from really Aliens and beyond. Because it's really in the second film we truly find out, because so much time has passed between the first two films while Ripley is off in cryo sleep, floating around in space until she's found. Only at that point do we really know that the species, the Xenomorph, has never made it to Earth, and that's one of the points of them wanting to get one of these specimens back. So, what's up, Aaron? How you doing? Hope you're having a good day. I hope your day was well. I know it's pretty late for you, so hopefully it's been a good day for you. It's just 6 minutes, about 10 minutes after 5 a.m. for me. So yeah, it's an early one, but I figure we'd just get on here and talk some horror stuff, talk some of the latest headlines that come out the last couple days. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm glad to see the marketing push behind this. I'm hoping the marketing push behind this pays off. I mean, if you're going to put that much time and effort into an immersive experience for fans to go to, again, if you can do all that, give me a full trailer already. Let's see what this is really about. Because if we look across the Alien franchise, not every single one of them was a hit. I said, and like I mentioned, overall, I like the Alien franchise. I enjoy it, but that doesn't mean there haven't been some significant misses along the way. I would say even for Alien 3, I know a lot of people don't like Alien 3. Many people think it's an absolutely terrible film. I, for one, enjoy Alien 3. I enjoy the environment it was in. Now, do I agree with some of the choices they made with some of the characters that they allowed to survive at the end of Aliens, and they just killed off and just kind of just tossed to the side at the beginning of Alien 3? Absolutely not. I mean, Hicks and Newt, I mean, they went through all that to survive, and then the beginning of Alien 3, they're already killed off before the film even gets started. So I thought that was a bit of a toss away. But if you haven't seen the special edition of Alien 3, for me, I think it adds a bit more to it. They did release that when they did a box set for the Blu-ray release years back. They released the special edition of Alien 3. Now, it is unpolished, though. So when they have those scenes in there, they weren't fully edited. So you can see where the original film or the original cut was, where these other scenes are at. And then it kind of, the look and feel shifts back. So that is a bit distracting, but I do find it nice to see those additional scenes that could have been a part of the original film, and for whatever reason they were removed. So again, I'm going to get off the soapbox on this one. I'm just really hoping that they can cleanly explain this issue early on, or at least within the first couple episodes of the show, because if they don't, for me as a fan, it's going to linger on as I watch this, because I'm going to want to know, how are they going to explain it or hide it? So are aliens, xenomorphs, somehow going to make it to Earth? And then we go back down to this list, which again, I think this is a new summary we haven't seen before, where it mentions all 4 companies. So we've always known about Weyland-Yutani, but we've known about these other 3 companies now that hold just as much power as Weyland-Yutani. And somehow do they become involved as a core group to say, hey, this small group of soldiers came across this. We now, they're trying to survive, but then somewhere along the lines in the series, these corporations realize what's going on, and now they need to somehow hide the information from the public, from Earth, so no one knows it's there. But again, if you go down that path, that means Weyland-Yutani had always known about this xenomorph species and probably would have had specimens to test. But when we go back to Aliens, that wasn't the case. Weyland-Yutani didn't not that they didn't know about it, but it had never been to Earth still. So somehow they're going to have to explain how this information is hidden from literally everybody. And I can't imagine as they put it, a young ragtag group of tactical soldiers is going to be able to hide probably the biggest secret in mankind for thousands of years, at least 2 years before we get to Alien, and then another 70, 80 years before we get to Aliens. So, I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And then as the series sequels continue, it's still something that never reached Earth, and then we start to turn into hundreds of years. I don't know. Again, that's just the soapbox I'm on. I'm not sure if anyone else agrees with me on that, but we'll see. We'll see how they somehow explain it, or if they outright ignore it, that's going to be a bigger problem for me. Well, even if I enjoy the series, I don't think that's a story point you can absolutely just ignore. So, all right. So our next topic, and again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm not going to play these 5 minutes because I'm not sure if there's going to be any copyright associated with playing these 5 minutes. I don't want the live show to get pulled down, but like I said, again, I do have the link for this in the description of this video. So if you want to check out these 5 minutes of Popeye the Slayer Man, you can do so. But as you see here, the Popeye the Slayer Man exclusively watched the bloody first 5 minutes of Popeye horror movie. So we're going to get into this, and then I'll cover off on my opinions on it. So we see here we have a brief first look, not first look, but an image from it. I will say on this, already better than the other Popeye's Revenge. So already better, just that one image alone. So director Robert Michael Ryan's Popeye the Slayer Man is on our way this month from Vantage Media and Bloody Discussing a Score, the debut of the film's opening sequence. So as we see here, it is going to theaters and VOD outlets on March 21st. So I'm not sure if that... So a lot of times when we get this information, as far as theaters and VOD, I always assume this is just a default to the U.S. and possibly U.S. and Canada. Now, as far as internationally, I'm 9 times out of 10 that the dates are different, or there are no dates even associated yet with international, depending upon who has distribution rights. So I'm going to just make the assumption and default that this is going to be the U.S. Canada release date. Just FYI for everybody. So Aaron says here, this seems strange and confusing to me. Yeah. So yeah, there's 3 Popeye films coming out. So we have Popeye's Revenge that's already out there. We have this one, Popeye the Slayer Man. And then we have a third one still to come out this year, which is Shiver Me Timbers. We haven't seen much on that one as of yet. We do have just a poster, as I recall, and it's him. We're kind of his back is to us with his head turned, and you can see he has his pipe in his mouth. That's, I think, only thing I've seen from that one. And with this one, we have gotten at least one trailer, and then this comes out literally in 2 weeks. So I mean, today's the 5th. So let's see. So it'll be 2 weeks from this coming Friday, the 7th. So 2 weeks from the 7th is when this film comes out. So like I said with Popeye's Revenge, I'll rent this one on the 21st. I'll watch it, and then I'll come back that weekend with a movie review. Now I'm not gonna hold Popeye's Revenge against this film. I'm gonna kind of clean the slate, cleanse the palate, so to speak, and watch this one on its own without allowing the first one to cloud my judgment, because that first Popeye film was not good. So as we continue on here in the clip, pursued by 2 thugs, Adrian attempts to find refuge in an abandoned spinach. Okay, I already see where we're going with this one. In an abandoned spinach canning factory, only to come face to face with the murderous legend of Popeye the Slayer Man. You'll also find the previously released official trailer underneath, which we have done have looked at that one already in the past. So if you want to see our review reaction to that, we have our trailer playlist that you can go find it in, or just search on our channel, you'll find it. So we have here the brief synopsis, which we've covered. Popeye the Slayer Man's dark reimaging of the classic Popeye character not only delivers a fresh take on a beloved icon, but also showcases its thrilling storytelling and bold visual style. So yeah, we read this, I think, the last time we had an update on this, so we're not going to necessarily go through it again. Casting, and we went old school with this movie, using practical effects for the horror. I'm happy to hear that. I'm always happy to hear practical effects are being used. And we wanted the film to have a more versatile feel, reminiscent of the classic horror films of the 80s. So I'm all for that as well, but depending upon where you fall within the 80s and depending upon what horror films you were using for your inspiration, because we all know a lot of horror films from the 80s, they are very much a representation of their time, and some of them are very cheesy, very corny, very just tongue-in-cheek. They don't really take themselves too seriously as far as the film goes. And we all know many horror films in the 80s were being just pumped out just for the sake of making money. As far as story, as far as all those things go, I'm not to say there wasn't care put behind it. I just don't think there was as much care as we're starting to see nowadays put behind horror. You had, the Friday the 13th films, you had Nightmare on Elm Street, so you had a lot of films just churning out sequels or just churning out content, again, because it was a popular thing. And if you do know the story about Halloween as to why we didn't see Halloween take off as quickly as the other two major franchises did, we're going to cover off of that. We're going to be doing a specific Halloween series where we're going to be breaking down a lot of that backstory and a lot of the sequels from that franchise. So be on the lookout for that. But here's the 5-minute clip again. I'm not going to play it because, again, I don't want to run into any copyright issues playing this. It is 5 minutes. I'll provide the link. Now let's go back to the top, because there was something I wanted to touch on, which was here. Attempts to find refuge in an abandoned spinach canning factory, only to come face to face with the murderous legend of Popeye the Slayer Man. So if you're telling, and we don't have a runtime on this listed in this article. I mean, I'm sure I can, if you give me a second, let's see if we can pull up the runtime here. So Popeye the Slayer Man runtime. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be pretty standard runtime. Pretty standard is 90 minutes for horror films like this, but I would hope it might be a little less. So this is going to be, it's an hour and 28 minutes long. But two things: one, this image here they're saying is in the first 5 minutes, or is in the opening sequence of the film, is already better than Popeye's Revenge. Already better. The practical effects, the way the kill looks way better than that. And also, this looks very much like something I would see it from Terrifier. And you hear me use Terrifier as an example many times. And the reason why I do is because I think it's one of those either films or franchises many of you have, if you're a horror fan, you have fresh of mind, right? It's a film you would have seen more recently. Whether you haven't seen Terrifier 3 or not, you more likely have at least seen the first two films somewhat recently. So you can recall what those practical effects look like in those kills, and that's what this looks like. This looks like one of those types of films where the gore is going to look like this. Again, far better than what we saw in Popeye's Revenge. Popeye's Revenge didn't have anything like this when it came to practical effects, and the kills were just done, I think, very lazy. And I'm not trying to be harsh on the film. I'm just trying to be realistic in what my perception of what it looked like. But this here is what stands out to me the most, is the abandoned spinach canning factory. So are we saying that the bulk of this film is going to be taking place in a spinach canning factory, an abandoned one, and somehow Popeye has been living in this abandoned factory this whole time, and there's now been this abandoned abundance of canned spinach he's lived off of throughout the however long. So Let's see here. Aaron says it's authenticity Popeye, but horror version. Yes, yeah, I agree. So with this one, with Popeye the Slayer Man, we don't. Let's see if I can pull up a. I'll pull up a picture real quick. Give me 1 sec. So let's see here. Let's bring this over on the screen. So you see here in this image right here. I done this Google search. Actually, let's just go to images. Let's take out runtime. So you see, like in this, if you actually let's click on this one. So like this is an image. Let's zoom in. Oh, it's not zooming in. Here we go. Yeah, it's not zooming in right for some reason. Yes. So if you see here, this image of Popeye from this particular film that we're getting ready to get in, like I said, like 2.5 weeks or so, this one is far closer to that image of Popeye that you have in your head from what you remember of him looking like in those old cartoons versus what we got in Popeye's Revenge. The only thing in Popeye's Revenge that tried or attempted to look somewhat close to the character were the forearms, but the forearms did not look like this. And the fact that they just tried to give him a similar like outfit, like this shirt here, like this old school sailor uniform. But even like the hat, the pipe, everything about that version of Popeye looked nothing like, again, this old school Popeye character that many of us recall it looking like, or many of us probably remember even watching as kids. You know, those old school cartoons. So I'm glad to see with this particular film, it is looking much closer to it, because the other one was a complete miss for me. And again, I'm not saying that those involved were just lazy about it, but it looks like for this one, when it came to the makeup, when it came to the look, they did take a lot more time into making sure Popeye represented what we believe Popeye to look like. So I appreciate that. But I guess my biggest thing was because for Popeye's Revenge, they were primarily stuck in what was being considered Popeye's old house, and he had this friend that lived there as well that he never saw, which turned out to be Olive. Her name was Olive, obviously to represent olive oil. And how they did that was pretty lazy as well, because in that Olive is his sister, if I remember correctly. And again, he's just in this is just his old house now that's owned by this other family who is now just trying to fix it up. And again, the story made zero sense. And the only reference they ever used to spinach was this brief moment where a can of spinach comes rolling underneath like this curtain, as if someone threw it through the glass window, and you see it rolling underneath the curtain. But when you hear the glass window break, as if someone threw it through it, and you see the can rolling, all the glass was already on the ground, and then it's as if someone was on the other side of the curtain and just took the can, just like rolled it. And then someone just did a sound effect for a broken glass. Again, very, very lazy aspects throughout that entire film that I just don't think that they took a lot of care into thinking out those small details when filming it. And for me, as someone who's watching, again, on average, 2 horror films a night, or, you know, whatever, to get into some of this content more on the independent film level and not just the big blockbuster ones, you can't tell me that if you're a film student on any level, or if you've watched movies on any level, those small details you need to think about, those small details you need to take in consideration, that if you're going to say, hey, this can of spinach is needing to be thrown through a window, that's what we want the audience to believe, well then don't have all the glass already on the ground, and then you're just rolling a can over it and then trying to make me believe someone just threw it through the glass, right? So my fingers crossed for this one to wrap up this topic. Like I said, I'll still watch it. I'm still going to give it a chance. I'm not going to allow Popeye's Revenge to again cloud my judgment on this film. And when Shiver Me Timbers comes out, I'll give that one a chance, even if this one also turns out to be extremely bad. But either way, we'll give it an opportunity. Now, I will say I'm not purchasing these films. I will not purchase these films. I rented the first one, and that was even a tough price to rent it at. I mean, it was only, I think, like $7. But still, $7. Looking back on it now, for $7, like, man, that was a pretty expensive rental for a film that bad. But I am glad I didn't purchase it. Normally, when it comes to this type of stuff, I'll purchase the film just because then I'll have an opportunity to go back and rewatch it. Or if we do a watch party and the group decides they want to watch it, I already have purchased it, and it's not another re-rental or repurchase where I'm almost double dipping. But yeah, will not be purchasing these films whatsoever. All right, so on to our next topic. And we got 2 articles to cover off on this topic here, which is Scream 7. So we have 2 things to cover off on. One, we finally got an update from Patrick Dempsey as to why he did not return for Scream 7, because many of us thought he was going to return. Especially after we saw the relationship that developed between Kincaid and Sydney in Scream 3. Obviously, we thought he would return as Sydney's husband in Scream 7. That didn't turn out to be the case. Her husband was casted with somebody else. And there was always that wonder as to, well, why didn't Patrick Dempsey return? Well, now we know. And while I understand it to a degree, I do question maybe some choices, maybe on the studio side, as to, I still think they could have made this work. So let's look, and then we also have another casting update that we're going to jump really quickly into, because I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. So Patrick Dempsey was approached about reprising his Scream 3 role of Mark Kincaid in Scream 7, but will not appear in the film. So what happened? He says right here, it just didn't work out. He told Variety, we are dealing with the fires. So I'm assuming, I think it's a fair assumption, that he's referring to the fires that had taken, the wildfires that had taken place in California that had gone on for several days. So I assume those are the fires he's referring to, and everything that was going on, and the schedule didn't work out, unfortunately. So in Scream 5, Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott made reference to her husband as Mark, leading fans to believe she had married her Scream 3 love interest Kincaid. However, it was announced in January that Joel McHale was cast as her husband, Mark Evans. In addition, so then we go on to just more casting, which I'm not gonna go over, and then we have the date here of when we're supposed to get Scream 7. But back up to this point here where he says it just didn't work out. Now, as far as dealing with the fires, 100% agree. That we're talking real life versus a movie, right? Real life happens; it's happening every day, and when something is as tragic as these California wildfires, and that's not to say that these wildfires are more tragic than any other wildfires that happen anywhere else. In general, wildfires are tragic, especially when they start to just run rampant and just absolute destruction, whether that's just out in the wild or whether that is just starting to go into neighborhoods and cities where we see what happened in California. So understanding that's where his focus needs to be, and obviously is and was. Now, as far as we go on to the rest of the statement and everything that was going on, and the schedule didn't work out, unfortunately. Now, if we're looking at a February 27th, 2026 release date, we have just under a year before this film hits. You can't tell me that those running this, the director, the studio, more so the director, since the director of this film has been involved in the franchise, since the first, and he's coming back for this particular sequel. You can't tell me there wasn't enough pull to say, hey, look, the fans want this character back. The fans would like to see, that story from Scream 3 to play out here. You can't tell me that they couldn't have filmed everything they needed to film and then told Patrick Dempsey, hey, let's try to align on something that works, maybe like mid 2025, by end of summer. So that gives them enough time to then just film his scenes and then edit in all that into what they need to edit his stuff in for. And he could have played a very small part. We obviously don't know, because everything dealing with Scream 7, when it comes to story, when it comes to the involvement, as far as level of involvement by some of these characters or actors and actresses, we don't know. They've kept literally everything under the lid. His part could be very small. And Joel McHale's part could be very small as well. He might only be in there for the first few minutes. He might only be in there just to be simply killed off, right? This could be a situation where whoever Ghostface is, or who's ever playing the, various versions of Ghostface, we could have more than one in this film, like we've seen before, where, Sydney's married, they found Sydney, and now Sydney is, her husband is killed off within the first 10, 15 minutes, right? Or the husband only shows up, 45 minutes into the film, and again, is only around for 5, 10 minutes, is killed off, right? I think something like that, the studio could have worked with Patrick Dempsey on and say, hey, let's work together. Let's figure out what schedule works for you. We only need you for like a couple weeks for these particular scenes and shots, and then make it happen. I mean, the fans obviously wanted Patrick Dempsey to come back in that role, especially since we knew her husband was going to be shown in this film. So I think that should have worked. So. Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, I feel for Patrick Dempsey as well. I mean, for all those who were definitely impacted. I mean, it's crazy to think how much was destroyed in that wildfire. And I think what bothers me about the fallout, so to speak, that might not be the right term, and it's not meant to offend anybody by using that term for this topic, but it seemed to have left the news really quick. It seemed to, like, no one now, even the local government, the state government, everyone to do with that situation there that were impacted, it's like crickets. You don't hear anything about that at all. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand, things, cycle through the news like everything else, but it feels very, very similar to when we had the wildfires in Hawaii, where it was a lot of destruction, and you saw all these celebrities coming out pushing for this and pushing for that, and politicians blaming people, but then it just seemed like it just went away. It was like, well, whatever happened? Like, how are things going on? Like, how are things moving along there? How are people recovering there? Right? I mean, I don't want to get off topic as far as, from horror into that type of stuff, but I just find it interesting that people like Patrick Dempsey, who are obviously one of many who are impacted, and not to say that, and I'm not passing judgment on, it might be someone in Patrick Dempsey's situation might be able to recover much quicker than, other people, just based on the fact that, he has his celebrity status, not celebrity status, so to speak, but as far as the career choice he's made, he may have obviously the funds to rebuild much quicker somewhere else that many people don't necessarily have. But that's neither here or there. It's just, I find it interesting that when these things come up, they seem to just dip out of the news cycle very quickly, and you never hear how things end up kind of just turning out. Like, how are we recovering? How are the recovery efforts going along, right? It just seems to completely fall off the map. So all that to say is, if that's what Patrick Dempsey was focused on and is currently still focused on, hey, good for him. Like I said, it's just a movie. It's not life or death like those situations are. I just think the studio could have done more to make the schedule work for him, to film his scenes and bring him back, especially since he's not a character that's been killed off. I mean, we're bringing back, at least we're bringing back the actors who played Roman and Stu. We don't know to what capacity they're actually playing or how they're going to fit into the story. But, I mean, if you're going to start to bring back characters that were clearly killed off, and you can't somehow fit in the schedule to bring Patrick Dempsey back to play this role, I don't know. Seems a bit just, I don't want to say shady, but it seems a bit lazy, in my opinion. I think more could have been done by the studio. And I think the director could have pushed more to the studio to say, hey, we still have about a year before this film releases. We have plenty of time. If we do his scenes, 2 or 3 months down the road, then we do that. And then we just, as part of the editing process, we just edit it in, right? So I think it could have been done. So the other Scream 7 topic or update I wanted to talk about, which I'm sure if you're following horror on any level, it seems like literally every day we're getting Scream 7 news. And I know some of my fellow channels in the community, it's one of the big topics they like to cover off on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with sticking to a particular film or franchise and trying to make sure that the community has the latest update on what's going on. That's what we're doing here as well. I just, for me though, I'm finding that the Scream 7 updates, and I'm not talking about from those in our community of content creators, I'm talking about it as far as the studio goes. It almost seems like they know it's a year out from this film releasing, and they're purposefully giving us these updates as they're like we're getting them. Like for example, we'll get like this news here. Like we got the Patrick Dempsey news. What was it on the 2nd? And then they wait 2 days, and then we get now this one that we're going to talk about. And then I'm sure next week there'll be another potential big one that will come out. It almost seems like they're constantly just trying, and it might be a smart tactic where they're trying to keep Scream 7 constantly on the forefront, on the front page, front of mind for everyone, and to be constantly being talked about. Maybe that's the approach here. However, it does become a little daunting when there's tons of other franchises or horror films. I personally would love to see some of these reporters or outlets be talking about, whether it's Deadline, whether it's whoever. And again, we're just focusing on Scream 7. So, as we see here, I didn't see this. This was not on my bingo card. I'll say that. So David Arquette returning as Deputy Dewey Riley in Scream 7. So David Arquette is joining Skate Foley and Matthew Lillard. As we just let me see if I can hide this here. As we just talked about, returning from the dead somehow in Scream 7 from Spyglass and Paramount Pictures, sources tell Deadline. The trio played characters who died in the franchise and are returning in a surprise way. Details regarding how his character comes back and the film's plot are currently under wraps. Which, again, that's been true for, I think, since we ever heard about Scream 7. So we go on, right here, this just really goes on to talk about Dewey's role, I guess, so to speak, as far as his timeline throughout the franchise. If you've seen Scream at all, you know all this. So down here, it talks a little bit about the fact that we know Dewey married Gail, who was played by Courtney Cox, which you don't know is also coming back for this one. Dewey killed Foley's character Roman, and that's one of the characters we did. The actor's name we mentioned up above from Scream 3, who is coming back for this film. At least the actor is coming back for this film. Arquette will also join the previously announced legacy cast members Campbell, Mason Gooding, and so yeah, more of the casting information. We talked a little bit about here on the various sequels and when they were released. Yeah, so now we're just getting into just basic historical information. But really, this update is just to touch on the fact that we're now bringing back another character that's been killed for Scream 7, and I'm starting to get a feeling that this is almost like an Avengers film, like whether it was like Endgame or something, where you're bringing back literally every character in the franchise into one film, and that's what this is starting to feel like, where we're getting 3 characters that have been clearly killed off, especially Roman, who was hit in the head by a projectile, and how do you recover from that? You don't. Stu, many people are arguing that Stu could still be alive. I don't think he is. He was stabbed a few times and stabbed pretty badly, and he even mentions that in the first film, how bad he was stabbed. Then he gets the TV dropped right on his head. We see him jolting. We hear the electrical sounds as if he's being electrocuted, and then his body stops moving. He stops breathing. So for Stu, unless they're going to pull a Halloween H2O, Halloween Resurrection type sequence like they did with Michael Myers, where at the end of H2O you thought Michael Myers was dead because Laurie cuts his head off with an axe, and we all thought he was dead, only to come to find out in Halloween Resurrection, we get the flashback sequence where Michael comes to, he crushes the throat of a paramedic so he can't make any sounds or talk, switches clothes, and somehow pins the mask on him so he can't take it off. And they now think that that's Michael Myers. So then Laurie thinks she killed him, and she in fact just killed a paramedic. So unless Stu somehow made it out of there before the police showed up and has been in hiding this whole time, doesn't make much sense. Same thing with Roman. That definitely one doesn't make sense. And Dewey got the send off. It was time for him to go. And in my opinion, Gale probably should have gone already as well. But Gale's returning. Gale Weathers is returning, Courtney Cox's character. Obviously, Sydney's returning. I mean, it wouldn't make much sense with all the effort they put into bringing her back, that she wouldn't try to return for this one, especially since she didn't return for the last one due to contract issues. So now they finally got her back. My opinion, the only way you make this work, and this has been my theory since day one, for Roman, for Stu, maybe even for Dewey, is you do something like similar to where we've seen like in the Mission Impossible films and the later films, where really from Mission Impossible 3 on, where they started using those silicone masks where they scan the individual's face, and then they'd have like this briefcase that would create this silicone mask, and then they would put this little patch on their throats so they could sound just like that individual. Obviously, we know the voice boxes and all that with the Scream franchise, so we know how they currently alter their voices. But as far as their faces go, that would be my theory is how they can bring these people back. You have someone who has this Roman mask on, or Stu, or in this case now Dewey, where Sidney and Gale believe that these individuals are alive, but they're truly not. They look and sound like these characters, but that's really not them, to make Sidney and Gale think, how are you still alive, or think that they're going crazy. Or the other more likely is going to be like flashbacks or hallucinations by Sidney and Gale. Could be related to some level of PTSD that they've been experiencing over all these years of dealing with Ghostface and the Constant being hunted or almost killed. So those are my two theories on how this could play out. I would like to see the first one. I think that'd be more creative, having the silicone mask, having these individuals truly walking around. They're not hallucinations. It's not flashbacks. If you're going to go through all this trouble and start bringing back all these characters, utilize them. Don't give me a 2-minute flashback of Dewey and then call it a day, or of Stu or of Roman. Utilize them. Otherwise, it was just a waste. So Aaron says Scream 7 is a nostalgia fest. Absolutely. That's what it's starting to feel like. It's starting to feel like either they know behind the scenes this could be the last go around for Scream for a while for the franchise. This might be the last go around for the characters Gale and Sidney before they say, yep, after Scream 7 we're going to shelve it and we're going to wait before we do an absolute complete reboot where we start from scratch. We're not doing like a continuation or some sort of spin where, oh, this is Sidney's cousin, or this is related to so and so, right? I could see, I don't want to see that anymore. So it almost feels like they're gearing up to say this is like the final go for a while, or in this current iteration of Scream's universe, before we see something different in years to come, which I'd be okay with. I would absolutely be okay with that. I think it's time for some of these franchises to take a break. But again, that's just my opinion. So, all right. So we only have a few more topics left. They're pretty quick. So I wanted to bring this one up. I don't think many people either saw this, have heard of this. I think it's unfortunate. I saw it. I immediately clicked on the link yesterday. Couldn't wait to read it, and now can't wait to get more information on this. Can't wait to see this film. So Crispin Glover to play Tommy Taffy in the Third Parent creepypasta adaptation. Rob Lowe and Rosaline Sanchez are also set to star in the feature debut of writer-director David Michaels. So Aaron says here they should wait a few years and then reboot Scream. At minimum, they should wait a few years. So if the next one doesn't come out until 2026, I would say wait until at least 2030 before you even announce anything to do with Scream, at minimum. And even then, you think if they announce anything in 2030, that's already 4 years removed. And if it takes another year to 2 years to actually put anything in production, that's what, another 6 years removed. I mean, that would be the minimum time frame. Ideally, I would say wait 8 to 10 years, and that includes a release of the film. So that would include the additional 1 to 2 years to, do the script, casting, pre-post production, all that. 8 to 10 years from 2026. So I'd say 2030, 2035, 2036. Start saying if you want to come back to Scream, come back to it. Otherwise, you got to figure out something different, and maybe you don't tell the story from like Sydney's perspective or the hunted perspective. Maybe you take a Scream film from Ghostface perspective. Let's follow Ghostface. Let's follow the fact of how he's moving about or how he's doing things, seeing things from his perspective. Right? Let's watch this. And I'm not saying a film like A Violent Nature or In a Violent Nature. I'm not saying like that. I'm saying you can take, instead of the story being focused on Sydney, how the focus be on whoever the Ghostface killer is, and then build a couple movies are based around that. And then what we're seeing is them hunting down, like, a character like Sydney or whoever it might be, right? So do something different with the character, or do something different with the franchise. Not always us seeing Ghostface in the shadows and us just watching the main characters try to evade him. So on this one here, so this here is a picture. It's not from the film. It's from American Gods of Crispin Glover. So the third parent and upcoming feature adaptation of the acclaimed Reddit creepypasta of the same name has officially found its lead cast, with Rob Lowe, Crispin Glover, and Rosaline Sanchez set to star. Deadline reports today. This was late yesterday. Deadline also reveals that Bleecker Street has taken North American distribution rights with a theatrical release planned. I'm hoping that stays true. I'm really looking forward to this if it actually does get a full theatrical release. The third parent marks the feature debut of writer-director David Michaels, based on the story by Ellis Withrow. The feature take is set amidst the 4th of July celebration as a disturbing figure named Tommy Taffy emerges, disguised as a human. He infiltrates a suburban neighborhood and imposes authoritarian rule over an unsuspecting family. We go into the next statement here. Crispin Glover's Tommy Taffy will be the next great horror villain, with Gary's incredible track record as a producer and David's strong vision, anchored by Rob Lowe and Rosaline Sanchez's compelling performances. We believe this will be a singular and terrifying theatrical experience. So I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait to see this. We don't have anything else beyond that. That's pretty much where it ends up. I just wanted to bring this up in case anyone had not heard about this happening. Another film, if you have not heard, it seems like Crispin Glover is starting to, make his way back into the front lines, so to speak. I'm not saying he hasn't been working on things. He's been keeping busy, doing stuff, one or two things every year or so. But there's another film that we did a trailer reaction and review on, called A Blind Bargain, where he plays Dr. Gruder. If you have not seen that trailer, go out on YouTube and search for it, watch it. If you're a horror fan, you like that 70s grindhouse, type of look and feel to the film, and the aesthetic and the acting, A Blind Bargain should be right up your alley. And A Blind Bargain is it's a reimagination, or the reimagining a Lon Chaney silent film from 1922, which has been known to be fully lost. There's no known living copy of that. So this is a reimagining of that story. But if you have not seen the trailer for it, it looks absolutely fantastic. We don't have a date yet on when that film is coming out, whether it's going to come out to theaters or straight to streaming or POD. Either way, it's on my list to see. And then when I saw this one pop up again with Crispin Glover, I was just as excited, and I can't wait for us to get a trailer on this one, because I feel Crispin Glover, as I mentioned when we did the trailer review for A Blind Bargain, I mean, obviously, everyone. I think majority of us all know who watch or entrenched in watching movies and enjoying movies know the whole Back to the Future debacle and lawsuit that he had, and why he didn't return for Back to the Future 2 after what happened. And I think since then that whole thing, and he has been. I'm not blind to this. I'm not ignoring this, but he has been known to be difficult to work with, right? So again, I don't ignore that fact, but I also don't ignore the fact that he's a great actor, especially when you start putting him into the horror spectrum. I think he's an amazing actor. So I can't wait to see him in both of these films. But again, this one popped up late yesterday, so I'm not sure who all may have seen it, may have missed it, but wanted to call this one out as, again, something to keep an eye out for that he's going to be in. And again, I just think he has that look and presence about him when it comes to a horror film that he absolutely just, again, he has that essence of horror in many of these films. So go check out a Blind Bargains trailer. And then obviously when the trailer for this one eventually makes its way, we will be covering it. All right, so our last, couple topics, just very high level here. We've been following this one. We've been talking about this one. If you recall, we did do a weekly episode summary and breakdown of Dexter Original Sin. You all know how I felt about Dexter Original Sin. If you don't know, we have a playlist for all those episodes, so go check them out. But we now have Dexter Resurrection is starting to feel like Scream 7 news. So little movie perp here. Bambi trailer released. Oh, really? So I'll have to go. Hey, man, how's it going? So I'll have to go. That must have released while I've been, doing the live show. So I'll have to. I'll check that out as soon as I end the show. We only have literally like 2 small topics left, but I'll go check that out and more likely do a trailer review reaction this morning on it. So Dexter Resurrection is starting to feel very much like Scream 7, where it seems like every other day it's another casting, and every other day it's something more to it. And obviously, Dexter Resurrection is going to be coming out much sooner than Scream 7. This is supposed to be coming out June, July this year, so just, 3 to 4 months away. And now we have another casting. As I mentioned with David Arquette coming back for Scream 7, this one here, also not on my bingo card. I did not anticipate seeing Neil Patrick Harris in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just as a guest star, joining Dexter Resurrection. And it feels like with Dexter, as we go on, it states here, it's currently in production in New York. The continuation of New Blood is expected to premiere on Paramount Plus with Showtime. All this we already know about. I mean, you have some of the other castings that we've covered, which was Peter Dinklage, Uma Thurman, Kristen Ritter, were the most recent ones named as to big castings for this. And now you have Neil Patrick Harris. Part of me is starting to think are we trying to just load this show up with recognizable names? Whether they're like Uma Thurman, who's been in the industry for a while, Peter Dinklage, who is more on the forefront of people's minds, more so because of even though Game of Thrones has been over for quite some time, many people were link him back to that, and he's going to be in the new Toxic Avenger film that's finally getting a release. And now you have Neil Patrick Harris, who has always kind of been on the forefront across the various stuff that he does. But again, it seems like are they just trying to pack this show with well-known names to try to draw people to this particular series? Now, supposedly Dexter Original Sin had some of the highest numbers that Showtime has seen for a series, which, okay, I'm not surprised. Again, you're going to have a lot of those people who enjoyed the original series of Dexter wanting to check out what this prequel is going to be about. So obviously that first few episodes or so are going to hit high numbers. Now this one, though, Dexter Resurrection, you're clearly coming off the end and the continuation of New Blood, which many people did not enjoy New Blood overall. Many people definitely did not enjoy how New Blood ended. I was one of them. And now you're picking up right where that show left off. We don't know if this is a limited run. We don't know episode count. We don't even really know how this is going to play as far as Michael C. Hall is. We saw him at the beginning of Original Sin, which technically would have been a continuation of the end of New Blood. rushed to the hospital. He's in the emergency room. Flash before your eyes. Now you're watching Original Sin. Original Sin ended. Didn't bring us back to the hospital. Didn't do a flash forward to back. He's on the gurney in the emergency room. The show kind of ended on a happy note, but now I'd imagine Resurrection is going to pick up right where we saw that scene. Dexter's in the hospital. They're trying to revive him, which Dexter Resurrection would make sense. Now, is he going to be staying where he's at? Out there in the woods, out there, trying to portray himself as like a lumberjack, so to speak, or is he if we're bringing back a lot of these other characters, for example, like we're bringing back Batista's character. Harrison's coming back. Harry Morgan's coming back. Harry Morgan's obviously a figment of his imagination, but unless you're bringing Batista back, unless Batista's finding out that Dexter's alive and travels to Dexter, what point is him being there unless Dexter's somehow going to make his way back to Florida? And if Dexter makes his way back to Florida and it's known that he's there and alive, are we going to be wasting episodes or time in this show focusing on people wondering, well, Dexter, where have you been? What happened to you? We found your boat or the remnants of your boat after that storm, and we never found Deborah. Whatever happened to her? We saw what happened to her, but no one knows that that's what Dexter did to her, as far as killing her and then wrapping her up, taking her out in the middle of the ocean, and then just putting her body down into the ocean, and then rides off into the storm, right? So how they're going to play this or explain this is going to make this a make or break for me, as far as how supporting continuations, because and of course they're not gonna. I'm not saying, hey, if I don't watch this, the show should be canceled, or if I don't watch this, it's going to fall and crumble. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I'm saying is, as far as every time now we see a new Dexter show or series pop up, my level of interest is going to start to falter a bit because how they handle the story. Now, Original Sin, as I mentioned throughout all Original Sin, in every episode breakdown I did, I felt there were a lot of missteps on story points they could have used, like the arm that was found. They just kind of tossed that whole storyline away. Nurse Mary's earrings that he kept as a trophy and ditched in the same place as the arm was found. They didn't touch on that either. And a lot of Dexter Original Sin, a lot of what we saw, we already knew. And we also got some visual aspects of that in the original series. Not fully, but some. But a lot of that story we knew. And a lot of that story didn't align with what happened in the original series. Like Harry's partner that we got in Original Sin. His partner is never mentioned in Dexter, the original series. Not once. Harry always speaks of another partner. And the fact that the captain turned out to be the killer, the fact that he kidnapped and killed a judge's son, kidnapped his own son, cut off his own son's finger, put him through all this just to be, spiteful towards his wife for cheating on him. You're telling me throughout all of Dexter original series, the fact that the captain within Metro Homicide was never once mentioned, never was a thought to say, hell, you guys remember our captain that, kidnapped a kid, killed him, and kidnapped his own? Never came up. So there was a lot of disconnects there that just didn't make sense as far as how that played out. And I just don't want to see the same thing continually happen with these Dexter series. How they handle whatever they're going to call it, Dexter, the Trinity Killer prequel, with John Lithgow doing the talkover. However they're going to handle that will be interesting. But as I mentioned in the finale of Dexter Original Sin, I would rather see a continuation of a series, 8 to 10 episodes of following Brian Moser from the end of Dexter Original Sin, where we see him standing there staring at Dexter and the family. Let's follow Brian Moser from there up until the point we find him out as the ice truck killer in the original series. Let's follow that. That to me would be far more interesting to see how he continues to get darker and darker as a character versus the Trinity Killer, which again, I just even though I don't know, the Trinity Killer is just not one I find much as interest as impactful to Dexter's life, outside of the fact that he killed Rita. As Brian Moser is the fact that Dexter suppressed the fact that that was his brother, even though they met in Original Sin and he didn't recognize him, but then comes to find out it's his brother in the original series when they finally meet. So again, I think we're just going to see this turn out to be more like Scream 7, where it seems like every other day we're going to get a Dexter Resurrection casting update or something to go along with this series. I think, again, because it's just 2 months out, they better start, or 3 months out, they better get a trailer ready, because they're going to need something besides just keep throwing some of these bigger names at it to draw people to watch it. All right, so the last topic I want to cover off on, which turned out to be exactly what I thought was going to happen, happened. We talked about this mid-January, towards the end of January, throughout February, about the various horror films that have been in theaters this year. Some of the big ones were obviously Wolfman, Presence, Hard Eyes, Companion. I think we're the four big ones we've seen, or supposed to be the four big ones that we have seen thus far in theaters this year that got a broad release. And we saw, and as I mentioned, when you saw the numbers from week 1 to week 2, you saw the drastic dips in the ticket sales, and then all of a sudden they would show up on POD or digital. Wolfman lasted 2.5 weeks. I think Presence lasted a little over, almost 3 weeks. And I mentioned with Companion and Hard Eyes, we would probably see the same thing happen. And the only thing I said with Hard Eyes that I was going to keep it a little bit longer in theaters was the fact week 2 was Valentine's Day for this film. And week 2 did much better than week 1 did. But here we are now. It's now February 5th. This came out on digital and video on demand yesterday. So you can already buy it. You can already rent it. And the Blu-ray release date is already set as well. So you see here, it was released on February 7th. So not even a full month in release. And let's see, and you can buy it on all platforms. So whether it's Apple, Fandango, Google Play, $19.99 or $24.99. And you get the Blu-ray or DVD on April 15th. Also releasing on 4K, which you'll get at the same time as well. There's going to be extras involved. And this article goes on to talk about, we're seeing this with a lot of big films this year. I call BS on that. You're not seeing that with a lot of big films like this. I don't see Captain America hitting digital 3 weeks after its release. Tops 3.5 weeks. I don't see a lot of these other big films hitting, whether it's these animated films hitting digital 2.5 weeks after their release. My theory was, when we talked about this originally, that it seemed like it was happening on horror films. And so far, we're 4 for 4. This has happened on 4 for 4 horror films that got somewhat of a push in marketing, except for Presence. Presence didn't get that big of a push in marketing, which was unfortunate. But the other three, Companion, Hard Eyes, and Werewolf, especially Werewolf, had big pushes marketing-wise for their theatrical releases. And right, wrong, and different, whether they did or didn't perform well, that's unless that's the driving force, as to say, hey, didn't make as much money as we wanted to that first week, so we're going to abandon theatrical altogether, and we're just now going to go to put it on digital. I still don't think, in my opinion, 2.5, 3 weeks for a film to be in theaters is enough time to allow it to recoup any level of its budget, unless the plan all along is to say, hey, we'll put some marketing behind it, we'll put some money behind it for a theatrical release, but we're really going to be banking on the VOD and the physical releases, the rentals, through the various platforms. If that's where you're looking for the biggest bang for your buck, then why not just, you might as well just go fall back on the business model, which I don't agree with at all, is the limited theatrical, and just go put it on digital and VOD on the same day. You might as well just do that versus wasting 2 or 3 weeks in theaters where you're just, I think, hurting the film versus helping it. So Aaron says here, I wonder if they're eventually go into streaming. So, and if they do, I think that's unfortunate, because I think many of these films deserve to be seen in theaters. I think being immersed in some of these films is a different experience in theaters, it's even with horror films. I think some horror films, the experience of the scares, or the experience of the suspense, or the thrill, or the mystery is vastly different when you watch it on the big screen versus watching it at home. I think it is slightly different. I can make an argument for going either way. Why big screen? Why watch at home? I mean, I can say personally for me, unless it's a film I'm absolutely been waiting forever to see, I've been following since day one, and I just need to see it on big screen, then I will see it. If it's lower than that scale, odds are I'm probably not, because I think the decorum in theaters, there's practically none. I don't know if it's just in my area or if other people experience this still in theaters, but the decorum in theaters as far as people on cell phones, using cell phones throughout the entire time, talking. If you, and this is just my opinion and perspective, if you have young children, and I say young children as children from the ages of like 4 to 7, you shouldn't be bringing your children to the movie theater thinking that they're going to sit there for an hour and a half to 2 hours quietly and watch a movie that they have zero interest in. If it's like not a cartoon, it's not animated. If you're bringing a 6, 7-year-old to watch Hard Eyes or to watch Companion or something like that, you're literally just disrespecting everyone else in that theater, because you know your children are not going to sit still for any length of time. And bringing an iPad for them to watch or keep them entertained is just a huge distraction, especially when you have the brightness on that iPad turned all the way up and it illuminates throughout the theater and everyone can see it, which again is just a massive disrespect to everyone else there that's watching it. So Aaron says here, they really need to distribute these films out internationally too. I agree. Excuse me one second. I agree. Which Aaron, I know you know just as well as anyone else. It's unfortunate because when it comes down to like the distribution rights, how that then gets like split up, like, you know, this company or studio will handle the U.S., Canada, or North America. This one will handle Europe. This one will handle, you know, whether it's strictly just for Australia, New Zealand, or, you know, or the Asia market, right? When you start getting 3-4 studios involved, it's, to your point, we might see a film here or get a film here that you, where you're located at, may not see for months, or have access to it outside of potentially trying to import a physical region-free copy, right? And even doing that is expensive. I've ordered some films from like Amazon, like UK, Amazon Spain, Italy, Germany, and it's not cheap. I mean, just for a couple of films, by the time you buy the currency exchange and the shipping and the additional fees, I mean, they're pretty expensive movies to own on physical. So it's unfortunate that a lot of these films, they don't just do a broad release. Like, hey, if Hard Eyes got released yesterday for within one market, why not just release it in all markets? I mean, again, if it's about making money, go make some money and release it in all markets. Again, that's just my opinion. So, all right, everyone, that is going to wrap it up for today's live show. I just want to say a quick thank you to all those who jumped in on the chat, joined me for today's show. It was an early one. Like I said, we started a little bit before 5 a.m., so a little bit earlier than I would normally start, but I felt there were enough topics that would have kept us going for a good amount of time. So yeah, kept us going for a little bit, almost an hour and a half. So just again, a quick thank you to all those who joined in on the chat, who joined in with us watching this morning's live show. I do thank you. I do appreciate it. To all the new and existing subscribers, I do appreciate you all as well for all the support, especially for all those who jump in on the comment section in the various daily videos that I put out there. I do my best to respond to everyone's comments as well, so those are not overlooked. Also, if you didn't know, all the daily content, like videos that get uploaded, obviously are all horror specific. They're all to do with horror content. I do upload daily shorts as well that are not horror related. They're more like real life driven related. So make sure you check out the shorts as well. I do try to do at least 3 to 4 horror videos a day, plus 3 shorts a day. So make sure you check out our shorts as well. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It is greatly appreciated. It doesn't cost you anything. I do this simply out of the fact of enjoying it and just trying to reach as many of those who love horror as I do to join in as well on the conversations, and maybe come across some trailers and some movies that you hadn't heard about that you might find and say, oh, I hadn't heard about those horror films. I'm gonna go check those ones out. I do try to cover as many of those as I possibly can that maybe, hey, I don't think many people have heard of this film, and try to put it out there and give it as much coverage as possible. So again, thank you everyone. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Little Movie Perp, for joining us today, and I will see you all at the next one. Peace.